The Vesh Combine's jammer platforms crackled with blue energy, flooding the human fleet with static. They expected chaos, but the human ships didn't scatter. They tightened into a silent, coordinated sphere.
Increased jamming power. I want every channel flooded. They'll be blind and leaderless in seconds.
Sub-Admiral Tereth watched the tactical display. The human ships weren't drifting. They were maneuvering.
Helm, take us to flank speed. Intercept their lead cruiser. Tactical weapons free.
Her destroyer surged forward, and the entire human formation shifted with her, each ship acting independently yet in perfect concert.
How are they doing this? We've cut every signal. They should be drifting.
His sensor officer reported no signals. The jamming was absolute.
This is impossible. No species can fight without orders.
The human fleet moved like one organism, yet no order had been sent. The Vesh Combine was already losing a battle they thought they had won. The jamming intensified. Static filled every frequency like a physical force.
Divert all power to the jammers. I want to see them blind and helpless.
But as the interference thickened, the human ships drew closer, a perfect sphere without gaps, on the bridge of the destroyer Resolute. Captain Hayes watched the static on her screens with an unreadable calm.
Helm, adjust bearing 270. They're probing our starboard flank.
No one had told her. She had seen the enemy movement and responded, and the other captains saw her turn and understood.
They're not using any frequency we can detect. How are they communicating?
His first officer suggested bioluminescence or laser link, but the jamming covered all known spectra.
Weapons. Target the cruiser on the left flank. Fire as soon as you have a solution.
The human ships erupted with coordinated fire, and the Vesh formation buckled, unable to anticipate an enemy that didn't rely on a central command. The jamming hadn't stopped the human fighters. Strikecraft launched from carriers, weaving through the static like they'd trained without radios their entire careers.
Enemy bomber group, 2 o'clock low. I am taking the flight to intercept.
No order came. Jenkins just saw the threat and moved, and his wingmen followed without a word. He threaded through a crossfire that would have shredded a coordinated squadron, his fighter a blur of independent motion.
They fight like a swarm of insects, each with its own mind. This isn't coordination, it's chaos, and somehow they are winning.
Jenkins's strike broke the bomber attack, saving the cruiser Defiant from certain destruction.
Divert all reserve squadrons to our flank. Intercept that fighter. He cannot be allowed to continue.
But Jenkins' fighter darted away, leaving the Vesh interceptors scrambling to track him.
That cruiser was too close to ignore. The commander would have done the same.
The Vesh watched in dismay as their doctrine failed. The jamming was supposed to paralyze, but instead it unleashed something far more dangerous: independent initiative. The Vesh deployed their attack fighters, hoping to sow confusion. But human escort ships moved to intercept without a single order. One escort captain saw a damaged carrier drifting. Without hesitation, he moved his ship to cover it. His ship took hits meant for the carrier, holding the line.
Scan every frequency. There must be a hidden communication method.
The Vesh swept the entire electromagnetic spectrum. They found nothing but static.
Impossible. No signal at all? How are they coordinating?
The human fleet moved in perfect harmony. A silent ballet the Vesh could not explain. Tereth watched his jamming. Once the Combine's greatest weapon, become a liability. The Vesh had paralyzed every human signal. And yet, the humans fought like they had never needed them in the first place. Out of options, Tereth shifted tactics. He would break the human formation by eliminating one key ship.
Concentrate all fire on that destroyer. When it falls, their coordination will collapse.
The Vesh fleet wheeled every gun and missile tube aligning on Captain Hayes' ship, the Resolute. Torpedoes and particle beams streaked toward the destroyer from multiple vectors. A storm of concentrated hate. On the Resolute's bridge, Hayes felt the ship groan as systems failed around her. She didn't flinch.
Evasive pattern. Delta. Shift power to aft shields. We're not dying today.
The Resolute shuddered under the onslaught. Hull breach alarms screamed across every deck, but the human fleet didn't wait for orders to react. Ships all around moved to cover the Resolute.
They should be falling apart. Why aren't they falling apart?
The Resolute was crippled, but still in the fight. Tareth had only proven that humanity didn't need a head to bite back. Through the static on her view screen, Hayes saw the Vesh flagship, close, arrogant, and exposed.
Helm, set collision course. Ramming speed. It's been an honor.
The Resolute's engines flared with final, desperate fury, driving the crippled ship toward the Vesh flagship.
Hard to port. They mean to ram us. Stop them.
The Resolute struck the flagship amidships. The collision shattered both hulls in a storm of fire. The Vesh flagship exploded. Its reactor breached, lighting the void like a second sun. Human ships surged through the fireball, exploiting the gap without a moment's hesitation. Tareth was hurled from his command chair, consoles erupting around him. The flagship was doomed.
All hands, abandon ship. Get to the pods.
Vesh ships fled. Tareth, wounded, was dragged to safety. The jamming persisted, but humanity's victory was complete. The human fleet didn't mourn the Resolute. They fought with a fire that seemed to grow with every loss. On a surviving Vesh cruiser, the officers watched the leaderless humans tear into their formations with renewed fury.
They sacrificed a ship, and it only made them fiercer. What kind of creatures are these?
Tareth lay on a medical cot, a bandage across his torso. The pain was nothing compared to the splintering of his beliefs.
Our doctrine was flawless. The jamming should have paralyzed them. Something is profoundly wrong.
Human fighters dove again and again, unrelenting, their motherships pressing the attack without a single command signal.
It's as if they each know the entire battle plan. Not just their part, but everyone's.
The Vesh formation shattered completely. Ships fled or surrendered. The vaunted Combine battle group was broken.
If this is what they are without a leader, then the Combine has been preparing for the wrong war.
And so, even as the Vesh surrendered, their sub-admiral began to see a truth far darker than simple communication failure. Without a single command, the human fleet split into 3 distinct groups, each vectoring independently toward the remaining Vesh positions.
They're dividing their forces without any coordination. It should be suicidal, but they're executing it perfectly.
Across the system, the jamming platforms began to fail, overwhelmed by damage or lack of power. As the jamming cleared, human ships could finally speak to each other. But they had already won without a single word.
This is Commander Anthony to all ships. Well done. Secure the prisoners and stand by for further orders, though I suspect you don't need them.
The Vesh survivors, leaderless and broken, transmitted their unconditional surrender.
The jamming didn't fail. I felt it still there. So why did they fight as if they never needed it?
A Marine detail boarded his crippled cruiser and took the sub-admiral into custody.
Sub-Admiral Tareth, this is Commander Anthony. Your jamming was impressive. It just wasn't needed.
The battle was over. The jamming platforms were dead. Humanity had fought without orders and won. Tareth was escorted through the human flagship. Still bandaged, his escort silent and professional. He passed human crew members, engineers, pilots, gunners, many of them resting but alert, some with quiet smiles. No one shouted orders. The ship hummed with a calm, self-directed efficiency that seemed almost organic. Tareth was deposited in a plain holding room. The door closed, leaving him with his thoughts.
This ship isn't functioning like a military vessel. It's as if each individual simply knows what to do.
Commander Anthony walked the corridors, checking on his people. He saw the weariness, but also the pride. He found Lieutenant Jenkins among the fighter crews, his flight suit still sweat-stained, and nodded. Then Anthony went to the brig. Beyond the security field, Tareth waited.
Commander, tell me how you did it. What technology lets you coordinate without a single order?
Anthony simply smiled. A small, knowing expression that said more than words could. The Vesh would have to wait for the full answer. An hour later, in a sterile white room, Sub-Admiral Tareth faced Commander Anthony across a metal table.
Your smile tells me you think you've won. But I know your jamming was not perfect. It must have failed somehow.
Anthony tapped a command. A holographic display showed the full-spectrum jamming data.
It didn't fail. According to your own sensors, which we recovered, the jamming was total. No frequency got through.
Tareth stared at the data. His physiology couldn't mask the shock.
Impossible. This data confirms it. They fought with no signal at all. Then you have another technology, something beyond our instruments. A telepathic network, perhaps.
No telepathy, no secret tech, just doctrine. We train every captain to fight as if command is already dead.
The word hung in the air. Tereth's entire career was built on decapitation strikes, yet here the body still fought.
They embraced the chaos. The jamming freed them.
Anthony leaned back, his expression turning almost professorial. The interrogation had become a history lesson.
For most of human history, a commander couldn't speak to his forces once they left sight. So we learned to trust.
That is ancient history. No spacefaring species fights with such primitive limits.
Anthony's smile returned, sharper now. The alien's disbelief was exactly what he'd expected.
Yet, here you are, a captive, and my fleet operated without a single order. Perhaps the old ways have merit.
Tereth's eyes moved to the display. The human fleet, scattered yet cohesive, each ship a point of light in the darkness.
Every captain knows the overall plan. They don't need me to tell them when to turn or fire.
You trust them with such autonomy. What if they make a mistake?
We train for it. We call it mission command. Your jamming simply gave them the freedom to act without hesitation.
Tereth fell silent, his gaze fixed on the fleet. The pieces were beginning to fit, but the full picture remained just out of reach.
You speak of mission command, yet you give me no details. What exactly does it involve?
That's not a secret I'll hand over today. What matters is that it worked.
It matters, because the Combine will return. With a dozen jamming platforms, your freedom will drown in static.
Then you'll just give us more freedom.
Before Tereth could respond, the room's door slid open. An officer's face was urgent. Commander, long-range sensors detect a massive Vesh fleet emerging from warp. On the displays, a new wave of Vesh battleships materialized, with jamming platforms 10 times more powerful.
Now you will see the might of the Combine. Surrender, and perhaps I will speak for your lives.
I think I'll stay and watch.
The second wave had come, but the human fleet had already proven its doctrine. The test would be whether they could do it again, on purpose. The Vesh Second Fleet's demand was simple. Surrender your vessels or be obliterated. The jamming began again, thicker than before. By order of the Combine, you will stand down or face annihilation.
All ships. This is Commander Anthony. We have comms, but we don't need them. Fight as you trained. Mission command is now.
Without hesitation, the human fleet scattered. Each ship chose its own vector, a silent and deliberate dispersal. The Vesh commanders saw it and believed they had won. A fleeing enemy, they thought, easy prey.
No orders. Just like last time. Let's show them what free pilots can do.
The jamming intensified to levels that would have crippled any other species. For the humans, it was just another layer of fog to navigate.
Why do they scatter? They have communications. They could coordinate now, yet they choose chaos.
Because chaos is where we thrive. Sub-Admiral, watch closely.
The human fleet, now dozens of independent units, flowed toward the Vesh Armada not as a single fist, but as a swarm of knives. The Vesh commanders saw the scattered human ships and ordered a standard envelopment, sure of an easy slaughter. But the human ships refused to be anchored. They flowed like water, each independent unit adjusting its course without a central directive.
They have no formation. Why can't we pin them down?
A human frigate danced around 3 heavy cruisers, evading their fire while picking off weapon emplacements with surgical precision.
Every human captain is a general. Every ship a flagship. How do you decapitate that?
The Vesh had built their entire doctrine around destroying a single head. Against a swarm with 1,000 minds, they had no answer. Vesh cruisers began to withdraw, their formations shattered by 100 independent decisions. The jamming that had been the Combine's greatest weapon now prevented them from coordinating against an enemy that didn't need coordination. And still, not a single order had been sent. The human fleet fought on pure, practiced instinct. The human frigate's captain saw an opening. Without waiting, he pushed his ship into the heart of the Vesh formation. He threaded through the crossfire, targeting the engines of the lead cruiser with surgical precision. The cruiser's engines erupted, setting off a chain reaction that ripped through its 2 escorts. 3 Vesh ships gone in an instant. The Vesh commander, in a panic, broadcast a general retreat. What remained of the fleet turned and fled.
They're cutting us apart, and not one order was ever given.
The human ships did not pursue far. The battle was already won. The second Vesh armada was shattered. Tereth watched the sensor feed as the jammer platforms fell silent one by one, their operators abandoning them.
It's over. Our entire doctrine. Useless.
The human fleet, scorched but intact, floated in the debris field. They had not needed a single order to win twice. After the second battle, Tereth was led once more to the sterile room. His wounds ached, but his pride hurt more.
What kind of species are you? You don't need orders, comms, or even a leader.
One that doesn't need to be told what to do.
He's right. The jamming didn't weaken them. It removed the only leash they still wore. Then, tell me everything. How do you train for this? What is the secret?
You truly want to know? It will change everything for you.
I have seen my life's work annihilated. I must understand why.
Anthony leaned forward, all traces of the previous games gone. The time for revelation had come.
Then listen closely. It's a doctrine called Mission Command, and it's the reason your jamming failed.
And so, in that sterile room, the commander began to explain the secret that had humbled the Combine. Commander Anthony leaned forward, his voice low and steady. What he described was not technology, but a philosophy.
Before every operation, I share my intent with every captain. Not just orders, but the why, the goal we're trying to achieve. Then I trust them to improvise. If comms fail, if I die, they already know what we're trying to do. They don't need me to tell them how.
Tereth's mind reeled. He thought of his own fleet, where every maneuver required explicit authorization from a central command.
My fleet was a machine. Theirs is a living mind. Each part knows the whole.
Your jamming didn't weaken us. It removed the chain of command we trained to fight without. You didn't silence our orders. You gave us permission to stop waiting for them.
The words hung in the sterile air. Tereth's hands, resting on the table, began to tremble.
Permission to stop waiting. We freed them from their own restraints.
He had no response. The Combine's signature weapon had given humanity the one thing they truly needed: a chance to fight their own way. Slowly, the full weight of it settled on him. The Combine had perfected a weapon that made humanity stronger.
Our jamming doesn't defeat you. It removes the only thing holding you back.
The empty command chair on the human bridge had been no weakness. It was the symbol of their strength.
We have spent generations building a doctrine that hands victory to this enemy.
He saw it clearly now. The Combine's future was not conquest, but collapse.
You trained for the absence of orders. We trained our enemies to be free.
His voice cracked on the last word. The sub-admiral, who had never doubted now, had nothing left to believe. The human fleet needed no central command. The Combine's entire military philosophy was obsolete. Tereth looked at the Vesh insignia, a symbol that now felt like a relic of a doomed empire. He slumped in his chair, defeated. The Combine had been beaten not by weapons, but by a way of thinking. The Vesh Combine, shattered and directionless, finally requested a truce.
Commander, allow me to contact my people. They must understand what we have discovered.
Anthony nodded. He understood the strategic value of an enemy who finally saw the truth.
Combine command. This is Tereth. Our doctrine is a fatal error. Their strength is autonomy. Request immediate cessation of hostilities.
The message was sent. Hours later, a reply arrived. The Combine would negotiate.
Earth Command. This is Commander Anthony. Mission Command has been validated. The enemy's weapon freed us. We are coming home.
The transmission raced across the void toward Earth, a message of victory and a warning for the galaxy. The human fleet, battered but intact, began the slow journey home, their formation still loose and independent.
I thought we had cut off their head, but they never had one.
In the end, the Combine learned the hardest lesson. Humanity never waited for orders. On the bridge of his flagship, Commander Anthony watched the stars. The fleet surrounded him, each ship a point of light in independent formation.
We never needed a single leader. Every captain already knew what to do.
The fleet drifted in loose, organic harmony. No central command ship. No flagship of obedience. In that moment, the truth was written across the void. Humanity's strength was not in the head, but in the hands of every soul aboard. The Combine had perfected a weapon they thought would paralyze. Instead, it taught them the nature of their enemy. And so, the Combine learned that some species don't keep their courage in the head. Humanity's power was not in waiting for orders, but in the trust that every person would do what was needed. They jammed every human signal. And humanity never needed them in the first place.
That's the truth of us. We don't wait. We act.
And as the fleet sailed on, the galaxy would remember. You don't win by cutting the head off an enemy whose heart beats in every chest. Tareth was escorted to the hangar bay, where a Vesh shuttle waited under guard. He paused at the ramp, taking one last look at the human ships that had never needed a single order.
You've changed the galaxy.
No, we just showed you what happens when you stop telling us what to do.
Tareth nodded once, then boarded the shuttle without another word. The hatch sealed, and the shuttle lifted off, leaving the human flagship behind. Through a viewport, Tareth watched the human fleet grow smaller, their lights enduring. Anthony stood at the hangar observation window, arms crossed until the shuttle was gone.
We built our empire on tyranny. They built theirs on trust.
And as the shuttle vanished into the void, the Combine's future was already being rewritten. The human fleet sailed on, its ships scattered in that same independent formation. They had no need to close ranks. There was no flagship, no central command, just 100 points of light, each one a captain, each one a will. They moved together not because they were told to, but because they shared a purpose built from trust. The Vesh had perfected the art of silencing their enemies, and in doing so, they had perfected humanity. Commander Anthony stood on his bridge, looking out. He didn't give a single order. He didn't need to. The stars stretched before them, infinite, and the fleet moved into them, not as a machine, but as a living thing. The Combine had gambled that a severed head would stop them. But humanity's strength had never rested in a head. It rested in every heart, in every pair of hands on a helm, in every mind that knew what to do and acted. They had jammed every human signal. And in the silence, they had discovered what humanity truly was, not a species that waited for orders, but one that never needed them.